Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we're going to be talking about racial passive changes and what kind of things we're seeing with them in the Wrathstone 4.3.3 update. And first off, I want to give some shout outs. One to Asian God. He did a really great. He's been doing really awesome this update at keeping up with checking the races against the different stuff. Liquid Pony, Mazel, Lyco. Lyco I think is away right now doing something because he hasn't posted any videos lately. But a lot of people have been really kind of worried that this update, the races, including myself, which I'm not going to hold myself out of this, a lot of us were worried that the races would become too powerful because of the 5-piece bonus thing and the food and all that. So this is my character that I play on live. I remade him here with exactly what they wear on live, but I have it all golded out. Now, some sets still are not being affected by not by racials, but by the food and CP, or the CP increase, like food and sets like Plague Doctor aren't being affected still in some cases. Now, your primary stat, like your racial stat, is being affected by the CP increase, but in some cases, depending on what sets you're wearing, food is not affected, neither is your racials. Now, I'm going to show you guys what I mean. So I'm wearing all golded out Plague Doctors and everything on this character here. So if you guys look, I'm wearing Bloodspawn, and on live I do have Bloodspawn infused, reinforced, heavy, medium, just like this, and then I wear 5 pieces of Night Mother's Gaze with a light belt. These pieces here are purple, and these pieces are all purple. So this is how it is on live, and I'm going to show you guys a screenshot so you guys can see for yourselves. Now, this is from last week's PTS of my characters. You can see I have 30,336 health with 29,908 max stamina. Now, I have all gold enchants on my gear. So every piece of gear I wear is a gold enchant. So I should actually be at 30,000 stamina, 30,000 health. But I'm still seeing the same results from this. The only thing that's different is this, my stam recovery. If you look here, my stam recovery is 1,027. This is actually being affected by the 258 now. It is actually getting the amplified. Not by 20%, it's actually getting affected by the percentage values now of increase from CP and stuff. The weapon damage, all this other stuff is the same. It's this right here that is different. And you can see my max magic is even higher than this. It's 14,474. Over on the other one, it's 15,000. That's actually being affected by the CP and the food and stuff. These other two are not. So something's still off with the calculations of CP. And if this CP is only going to give me roughly about 1,000 extra stamina, there's definitely something wrong. Because according to the map that I did and many others have done, I should be sitting at about 31,000 health with almost 32,000 health with a 31,000 max stamina or 32,000 max stamina with the changes to CP and everything, and that's not what happened. So some sets, some things are still not being affected by the CP changes. All right, so now that that's out of the way, let's talk a little bit about what people are seeing with parse tests. Things like that. Myself, on average, everything was within about 2k damage on an average. So, like, because I tested every race and class. I didn't go through and just test one race. And then, or certain races, I tested every race to see But I only did it on a 3 million point dummy, and I was coming within 1 to 2,000 on average in damage between races like a Wood Elf on Magic DPS now, for example. Wood Elf would be within 2k of Altmer. And Altmer is actually doing the best for Magic DPS, but it's funny, because it's only within like 100 to 200 points from Dunmer or Breton. And it varies, because Dunmer and Breton are very close, and Altmer and Breton and Dunmer, actually, all three of them, are very close to each other in damage. Within 400 points. Then you get the Khajiit, which is within like 500-600 points to Altmer. And then you go down to the next race, which is Argonian, which is very similar to Khajiit. They're almost on par with most classes when it comes to damage, Khajiit and Argonian, which I thought was really good. Now, when you go down to stamina DPS, that's where things get a little different. Imperial and Nord. Because these are the races that most people are talking about when it comes to stam DPS. Imperial is very close now to Redguard in stamina DPS, and Wood Elf. Those three have a very, very similar, within 50 to 25 points of damage most of the time. The Khajiit is slightly above them or below them. It's kind of with them, but not. It because of the variables of crit chance and the damage you deal. I mean, how you deal damage. Like how much damage you deal per hit can change on the Khajiit. But the Khajiit was pretty much right with them most of the time. It depended on the class. Classes like Templar, they were lower a little bit. They were kind of on par with them. Nightblades, they were on par with them. It was the races that didn't have crit chance that they would excel and go up to closer to Dunmer, High Elf, or Dunmer, Orc, and stuff. Imperials, though, were, like I said, were closer to the Redguard and, oh my god, and Wood Elf, because they do have 2k stamina as well, but they have really good sustain now to some degree. They don't have like the best sustain, but they're closer to the Redguard and Wood Elf. Nord is right below them, right below all of them, including Khajiit, like right underneath them by about 100 points in damage, and then all other races are below that. So Argonian, Breton, High Elf, I'm trying to remember if there's another Magicka race. I don't think there is. I think it's just those three. Are right underneath them by about 500 points. So between the Argonian and the Orc, which the Orc is showing the best at stamina DPS by a margin. I mean, we are talking like not even a 0.1% difference between them and Dunmer in stamina DPS. The Argonian came within 2k damage most of the time. Now, I do have a link in the description below to a post made by Susmit DS. Susmit DS, yeah, that's it. And I'm going to go ahead and take you guys to that post real quick. Right here. You guys can check through it yourself. He did a raid parse with every race, or every class, and he did it with the races that he thought were going to be like the most magical, the most stamina based. They didn't do, like, I don't think on the stamina ones, I don't think they included the Imperial or the Nord. Oh, they did include the Imperial. They didn't include the Nord in here, but the Nord is literally like 200 or 300 points less. So, I mean, they are so close, like, with all of them already. It's not even funny. It's super close. But I'm going to put a link to this in the description, this post of his. And you guys can see, like, even he shows here on his averages that they're within 2k. Like, the average, no racials. So this would be like Argonian, Wood Elf, or sorry, Argonian, Breton, and High Elf versus the Orc. And an Orc usually pulled out ahead, but if you look here between the two, it's not even 100 points above the Dunmer. And then the same thing here between the Redguard and Bosmer. Like, this, I think, is a little skewed because Redguard and Dunmer, or Wood Elf on mine, were within, like, really within each other. Like, they could literally be the same. Almost. It's just the Redguard did have a little bit better sustain. So this is why they might have this a little skewed. But if you look, like, as you go down, the point difference actually just gets really, like, it's not, there's not enough to make a huge difference. And I think that's why you see that. Like, the Imperial and the Khajiit are really on par with each other here. We'll go look at the Templar real quick, because I think that's the one where the Khajiit did a little better. No, the Khajiit still did less. The Imperial actually does a little better here, but not by much. Not by much. The Imperial didn't do much better. It was like 50 points maybe. But yeah, this is pretty much what I was saying as well. Like, the races are so close to each other in comparison that you can't really determine what's going to be the best. I mean, you can say Orc is going to be the best stamina DPS, but the difference isn't even 5% from Argonian. It might feel like 5% at times, but it's not, because of the average. If you are going through a trial, on average, the Argonian should be within 2k of the Orc. I would say at least 65% of the time. On average. So they should be within 2k of each other. Argonian stam DPS versus Orc stamina DPS. And that's if you're using, like, the same exact setup on everything. Now, a lot of times you can change a few things, and, like, in some cases you can use, like, instead of Dubious Cameron Throne on a Breton, you might be able to get away with not using that, and using something like, or, you know, Witch Mother's Potent Brew or something for a Magicka DPS. And on the back bar, instead of having, like, a Magicka Recovery enchant, or a Absorb Magicka enchant, you could put, like, a Berserking enchant, and that's what brings them closer to Dark Elf, or, sorry, High Elf in DPS, and in some cases can actually put them above, because you can run, like, Blue Food and still pull that off. In most cases you could. So, but yeah, check out Sussmit DS's post. It's a really great write-up, and I want to give him and his group a massive shout-out, because they did a raid parse with that, and it shows. I mean, you can't get any better than that. Like, you could, I'm sure, but, like, that is really, like, really good, showing that how close the races are to each other in DPS. Now, in a better raid environment, some races might excel a little bit better, but it's still too small of a difference to really say, in my opinion, that, oh, well, you can't be an Argonian Stam DPS, or you can't be a Wood Elf Magicka DPS kind of thing. So I'm just letting you guys know that. Now, going on to the other things, tanks and healers. Tanks are, like, a lot of people are saying that Nord is going to be the new main tank. Breton, or Nord, Imperial, and Argonian are going to be the main tank races. And I have to agree. Nord's going to be the one that everyone's going to want to use because of its ulti gen. The problem is if you use it with, like, Bloodspawn, you will be over a resistance cap, no matter what class you're playing. So if you're playing a DK running Bloodspawn, Ebon Alkosh, you're going to go over resistance cap on Magicka side every time with a Nord, because of their 4K resistances. If you don't use a resistance buff, that is. You won't. But if you use a resistance buff, you will be over cap. And I don't know, like, how many people really want to do that, but their ulti gen is going to be phenomenal. And I'm not going to say, like, the greatest thing in the world. It's going to be better than any of the other races. The Imperial, though, because of their new racial passives, they actually get some really good ones, and they get really amazing sustain now. And I'm half tempted. I am half tempted to make an Imperial Templar tank because they're really good. They are really good. I mean, these things, you can self-sustain forever. They are that good almost. It's crazy. Now, Argonian is still going to be really good for self-sustain when it comes to their potion passive. And that's where they are going to excel. They're going to be the easiest tank to learn with, for sure. But the other races are still really going to be good. A lot of the other races will be really good. Breton's still going to be an amazing tank for tanks, especially tanks that are using a lot of Magicka-based stuff. They're going to be really powerful because of the magic reduced cost on abilities and things. That's just going to make them really good at that. The other one is the Imperial, of course, and then Redguard is really powerful for tanking, especially if you're using Sword and Board. For some reason, they are just way too easy to maintain, blocking and everything. I went in, I made, I don't know if you guys know Zynode. Zynode's an unkillable tank. I made it, and I went into, and it's a Dragonite, and I went into Hellraw Citadel to the first initial fight. I never died. I stayed in there for an hour and a half on the first fight, and not once did I die. I stood there and just took a beating for 1 hour with the Redguard, because it was that powerful at sustain. It's ridiculous. Now, Wood Elf is also really good at sustain, but you have to throw a lot of heavy attacks because you can't block and get your recovery. So you have to throw heavy attacks, and when you throw heavy attacks, you do get your stamina recovery, which is really... I'm going to go ahead and burn through this just so you guys can see. So when I heavy attack, I'm going to try and get this as low as possible so we can... Okay, so one more. I'm going to let it go up, and then I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to heavy attack. Watch how much I get back. So I get from my heavy attack, I'll get like 3k. I get over 4k back when I heavy attack. Because I do get the extra 1,027. But if I have a potion going, I actually get 1,207. So I'm going to go ahead and burn through stamina again, just to show you guys. It's crazy. So as you guys can see, I went from 16, there's 18, up to 22k when I heavy attacked. That was over 4k. Just over 4k. I mean, it's nuts how much recovery you get. And with Sword and Board, it's a little less. You get about 3k, but it's still 3k when you heavy attack with the Wood Elf, because the Wood Elf does get a lot of stamina recovery. And this is running Bloodspawn, guys. So another thing you have to know about running Bloodspawn and Sword and Shield is this. This is with two-handed guys and mostly reinforced gear. If I was running Sword and Board, no reinforced, all sturdy, I would actually be over resistance cap on both physical and spell with Bloodspawn as a Wood Elf. And that's because of the passive, their buff that they get when they use their resistance buff. They do get 50% more resistances. So you can go over resistance with Templars really easy. You have to be really careful with them, so you don't go over resistance with them. So even Lord Warden will put you almost at resistance cap. It's crazy. So, but yeah, so yeah, that's it. Tanks really showing some stuff. Healers now, this is the one where people are going to get confused because they're going to wonder how I did this. So what I did was I used two different abilities, or I used every ability, like not every heal, but I used certain abilities. I used Healing Springs, Combat Prayer, and Breath of Life on a Templar. On Nightblade, I used Healing Springs, Combat Prayer, and your dot heal that you siphon, you're siphoning. And then I used on the DK, I used Stone Fist. Healing Springs and, or not Stone Fist, the other one, the Eruption one. I used that, Healing Springs, and Combat Prayer to determine do the healing tests. Sork, I used the Pet, the Twilight Matriarch, Healing Springs, and Combat Prayer. On Warden, I used the Spores, the mushroom thing, Healing Springs, and Combat Prayer. And then on, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So on all the races, I used one class ability and one and two staff abilities to test the healing capabilities of each of the races. And I did test every race and class running Olorim, Jorvolds with Earthgore. And in most of the cases, most of them, the races that did really good were Breton, Argonian, Altmer, Dunmer, Khajiit, Imperial. Nord was good because of the ulti gen, but you have to be in a combat to see it. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to say. But the races that were the best, and it just came down to honestly what gear sets you were running. If you're doing a Khajiit healer running an infallible mage with the Olorim set and Earthgore, that combination was really good because you would get more critical heals, and this would put Khajiit slightly above the other races. Now, I did do that test too. Earthgore, Olorim with Infallible Aether or Infallible Mage set. And if you guys don't know what Infallible Mage set is, it's Julianus, but it has a minor vulnerability debuff thing on it, so you can keep it up a lot better. And it doesn't apply with minor vulnerability. It's a completely different thing, but it's kind of the same concept. It increases your damage against enemies by 8% when you heavy attack. So I did the testing with that set on the Khajiit and every other race, but only on the Templar to see what the difference would be like. With that setup, Khajiits did heal as good as Altmers and Dunmers. Dunmers and Altmers, the difference was about 50 to 100 points, if that. It really depended on if they crit or not. In all the other classes, besides the Templar and Warden, because Warden and Templar were very close in their healing capabilities, the Dragon Knight was actually the third best healer when it came to heals, and the reason why is because of that Eruption ability. It tick heals, and it can tick heal higher than Healing Springs. I was getting like 4k heals with some of the races off of it. Other races I was getting like 3.8k heals, which was about 800 points higher to 1,000 points higher than Healing Springs. Now, the difference between the races, like I said, Breton, Argonian, and Altmer and Dunmer were the best. But the differences were too close to say which one was the best. Now, if you're talking about sustainability, Breton wins out over all races. They can self-sustain, but they can also heal really good. The problem is that they can't heal as well or as powerful as a Wood Elf, or as a High Elf. The Argonian can heal as good as a Breton and sustain almost as good as a Breton because of their potion passive. The problem is that they don't have the spell damage like the High Elf or the Dunmer. So High Elf and Dunmer were still better because of the spell damage, but only by like 300 or 400 points. Khajiits, on the other hand, could heal as high as them if they could get critical healing done, because they get the 10% increased critical healing. And if they could crit heal, their heals would be on par almost. I mean, literally on par with the High Elf in most cases, with Breath of Life, Healing Springs, and Combat Prayer. So And it was really kind of interesting to see that, how well that works. Now, I didn't try orbs or spear shards or any of the other stuff. I just used those abilities because I felt that would be the easiest ones to test with, because I could get accurate numbers. But that's what I was seeing. Now, when it came to the difference between, like I said, Wood Elf as a healer and Altmer, which, because Altmer was showing the highest heals, Wood Elf and Altmer, there was about a 1k difference in Breath of Life, and about a 500, maybe 600 point difference in Healing Springs. So a Wood Elf technically could heal a group in a trial and be fine. The problem is that their sustain is a little bad. Not really bad. I mean, it's not that bad, honestly. I mean, we're talking like 300, or we're talking they have the same recovery rate as a High Elf. The problem with it is that High Elf does have the spell damage, so their heals are stronger. So it's like, that's it. When it comes to the Breton does have easier sustain because of their reduced spell cost abilities and the 100 magic recovery they get. But that only gives them a little bit better sustain. And it is a lot easier to sustain on them, but that's about all it does. And they get the higher mag resistance, which, you could just be a Nord. I mean, and honestly, a Nord healer is almost as strong as a Breton healer. So it's like within, I think it was like within 700 points on the Breton. Not quite 1,000 between the Nord and the Breton. And then you would get both 4k spell and physical resistance. So the Nord did work really well, but at the same time, I don't know like if that's like an in-game thing, if people would do that. It is they do generate the ultimate, so it could be a thing. Other than that, though, I mean, a lot of the races, from DPS to tank setups, like to even tank setups, like the Imperial was the best stat-wise versus the Nord. The Nord had higher resistance, but it had lower stats. The Argonian had lower stats. But when you look at it overall, the Nord, or not the Nord, the Imperial was still the best overall for tank when it came to overall stat values. But capability really comes down to the player. So tanking, you could choose whatever race you really wanted, but the easiest races to tank with are going to be Imperial, Argonian, and Nord. The other races, you're gonna have to find your niche in there with that, and they do have their places. So for healing, Altmer definitely, if you want really powerful heals, Dunmer second underneath him with Argonian and Breton, and then Khajiit. And it really depends on what you prefer, I guess. But the difference is so small. It's really, I don't think it's a big deal. Even sustain isn't an issue like I had no sustain issues with any race really, because I had the same sustain that I did on live, like I have on live already with my Khajiit. So it was like, oh, and I can already sustain on my Khajiit in any trial now on live. So it's, and I don't have Olarim, Infallible Aether. I have Spell Power Cure right now with the Worm Cult, and I run Sentinels. So that's what I run on live, and I like it. It's okay. But I do heal trials with it, and sometimes I run that, especially when I run CR. I'll run that because that way I can get... and I am trying to get a full Olarim set right now, because I will change out my Spell Power Cure for that. But I'll run Olarim and Worm Cult. Definitely. That'll be my setup for my Khajiit, because I like that 4% reduced cost in Magicka. So, it really applies well with the Templar's already 4% reduced cost. And then if you're a Breton, yeah, Bretons are really OP and Templar healers, because they get 7% plus the 4%. But when it comes to DPS, stamina DPS, Orc is definitely pulling on ahead. So if you're looking for min-maxing high-end group runs, Orc will be the one by a small margin, honestly. Very small margin to Dunmer. And then the Red Guard, Bosmer, you know, that kind of thing. When it comes to Magicka DPS, Altmer is the best, even on a Mag DK, even though it shows Breton is slightly better. The only reason why I think Breton was showing slightly better is because I think they used the enchants, the Berserker enchant, instead of using using a Berserker enchant on everybody. I think they did. They might have done the Mag Recovery one, the Absorb Magicka, on the back bar with the races, and it would have put the Breton ahead because they could have just used Berserker. But it wouldn't have been that way if the Altmer was using the Berserker enchant. If the Berserker enchant was on the Altmer, they will blow the Breton. They will be ahead of the Breton by at least a few hundred points. So, and that's pretty much what a lot of us have been trying to say is pick the race you want to play, because it really isn't gonna matter that much. If you're worried about being min-maxed to the 100% best of the best, then you're going to have to go with a specific race. But you don't have to. I'm still going to play my Argonian Stam DPS DK, my Argonian Stam Nightblade. I'm still going to play my Khajiit Healer. I'm still going to play my High Elf Templar tank that I'm working on, that I will be working on here really soon. Those are going to be things I'm going to be playing. And I really, really am excited about it, because now I will be able to play these builds and nobody can really complain because they work really well. So, but yeah, that's pretty much what I got going on, or I wanted to talk about in this video, guys. I know a lot of people are confused with the damage, because you would be thinking that Altmer, with its 2,000 extra max Magicka, the 258 extra spell damage, it would be doing so much more damage than somebody else, but it doesn't. I honestly thought it would be better, but it's really not that much better. But that's it pretty much for this video, guys. Also, major shout out to Susmit DS, Asian God, Mazel, Lyco, all those other people that have posted on the Liquid Pony, that have posted on the forums, DPS parses and things like that. You guys have really shown your potential this update with just getting that information out to the player base and letting them see what the results are. Hopefully next time, guys, I'll be able to get some parse testing done, real ones. But I'm still working on my rotations, so I don't want to try and do like these guys do, honestly, because I'm not that good. Not yet. Maybe one day. So, maybe one day. But yeah, I do want to give a shout out to those guys, because they really did put in the work, and they really did a great job on getting the tests done and out there to the community. So, thank you guys. Other than that, you guys know what's coming next. You guys like this video? Hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.